seem to be one of the strongest advocates on the consumer side, which is not always easier to find, right, Ashwini? Okay, so I think what we've covered so far is, the infrastructure dimension, the market development dimension. But there is one aspect which I think, really enables, and that is regulatory, aspects. And I think the role of regulations is very important. And, some of our panelists who are not able to join us here today were from the power sector. And I think one of the things we always say is that, to go from 6 to 15%, even our own numbers show that transport is very important, mobility is very important. But and in any global market where gas has really penetrated, power is a very important part of the equation. It's sad that we are missing our colleague here from NTPC, but I think if I could ask you, Ashwini, to delve into the power aspect, for completeness of this discussion, that we have this classic syndrome which is playing out not just in India, that gas is competing with coal, cheaper coal, dirtier coal, but also getting cleaner coal and clean renewables. So how does this gas into power equation get fixed?
Okay, so thank you, Gauri. And our Outlook, LNG Outlook, which can be downloaded from our website, talks a lot about power sector globally, not just in India. And if you look at, what has happened, out of the nearly 35 million tons of capacity addition which happened in 2019, a majority of the growth on the demand side has actually come from non-power sector. So that's a good news for gas. The dependency on power alone is coming down significantly. But having said that, I think in India we have a very abysmal gas-based power situation. We have nearly 24 gigawatt of installed capacity. Half of that is lying stranded, and some of them have even gone into insolvency, which is actually, not a good thing to happen. It's all a national resource. Especially because of the push renewable is getting, and at the moment, if I was reading this, the January data, the renewable penetration was 9.6% for the month of January. But imagine, when this penetration starts going to 12%, 13% kind of levels.
We haven't seen that system yet.
We haven't. We have seen in some parts of the country in South.
In South, yeah.
And that's where the major imbalance in the grid will happen. And I don't think, coal can provide a complementary solution to these renewables, but for one, it doesn't sound right that, coal is complementing renewable, one cleanest source and one dirtiest source. Gas comes in not just as a natural complement to renewable because of environmental considerations, but also economically, and the flexibility it provides. For instance, the ramp up and ramp down of a gas turbine in open cycle can be as short as less than 5 minutes. A coal-based power plant can't even, even to start the boiler, you need 15 minutes. So what I'm saying is, gas is a natural choice, and hence, my view is that, India still has, a lot to do in terms of, improving the gas consumption in power sector, especially because we have so much of stranded power capacity line.
Right, right. So, and do you see any developments on the gas renewable front as partner fuels here?
So some of the tenders which are coming now, the SECI tender which came recently, it triggered a process, So they said they want round-the-clock power. They didn't say, how you produce round-the-clock. And, the entire renewable industry was scrambling for finding out the partners. So people who had, hydel, they complemented with hydel. Some people went for storage solutions. Battery costs are still very high. They don't make sense, a lot of sense. And a lot of these companies were coming to the gas players. A lot of people in this room might have realized, for that tender, and, there were, I personally attended one of the, what they call as a pre-bid meeting, where, a lot of questions were raised, how this complementary thing is going to work. So, of course, that tender didn't happen. It was for NDMC. It didn't go through, but there was another one after that which happened where, both Renew and Greenco got about 800 and 400 megawatt each. But I think this is the starting of a phenomena, because even the regulators and, the bodies like SECI are realizing they want, not just intermittent power, they want round-the-clock power.
Round-the-clock power, right.
And, this is, the market forces itself are going to force, some of the solutions for power sector. And of course, if government can step in and start working on in the interim as schemes like PHDF, which they started in
Right.
2016 for 2 years, that will really be helpful for the power sector.
So I think we watch the regulatory space is your message here. I think moving on to the regulatory theme with you, we say, infrastructure comes first and then demand follows. But it sounds like, when you started operations in Delhi, it was regulations that came first. So can you share some, aspects about the role of the judiciary, the role of the Supreme Court, the NGTs, which are it seems, are policy innovations, and what role have they really played, not just in the start, but in the development of this sector?
Yeah, before answering your question, I think I have to first thank Ashish because every time he speaks and gives us some wonderful numbers, the entire house knows that for the next 10 years we are going to have bread in our house. So
Right.
thank you very much for that. So the regulatory part of it, I think you spoke about how the judiciary and the NGTs stepped into the picture, and that's the way value was created for IGL. So we had to work in very different areas and not really to get the customers initially. But while we have new GAs, and I think we are going to face the same kind of issues we were discussing, that okay, we have an island where the things were coming because of some regulatory mechanism, and then we would have places where you'll have to go out and create a pull for the customer. I think in our country, every time, the major decisions are taken by the court based on the public interest. And that is how I spoke about the 20 years ago experience of the air being so dirty, and that is how the Supreme Court came into being. But every time we should not expect the judiciary and the tribunals and the authorities to play a role. I think it is local government, the people who have to come out and they have to actually set their agenda in mind that we cannot be continuously governed by the only regulatory bodies who decide the future for us. And regulatory, we were talking about the country specific. I think in India, our needs are very different from the many other economies of the world. In the morning, we heard the US perspective, which talked about the limitations or the controls they have on exports. The FTA countries and the non-FTA countries and the three countries which are outside everything else. For a country like us, I think we would have limitations on imports. Where to import, how to import, which is the best market, the cheapest market, logistics-wise. So it's time, I think, for IGL, the story has been very different. So that we have discussed over and over again. And every time what happens when one kind of market gets saturated, so luckily for us, you have another avenue, so wherein we can sell some more quantities. So IPCA, as we know, so every winters when the farmers burn their stubble in Punjab and Haryana, so it gets very messy in Delhi. And there's a ban on diesel generators. So the regulation says that for those many months, you cannot use a diesel regulator, but that is not being truly enforced as of now. But then that market is very much there, evident, that people will have to move on to a gas-based generator. And I think many societies have already done it. So there's a huge market potential. So which is again coming out of the regulation, but then people slowly realize the economic value behind it. It's less polluting, more economic favorable. Similarly, we heard about Mr. Mathur talked about the tower industry. They have the same challenge. So they are presently using HSD. And we are already in touch with the major players. And in the coming few months, you might have a lot of gas-based generators for the towers.
Yeah.
So I think Indian regulator has been doing a fantastic job. They have really set the whole thing in order. Whatever issues which were bothering the industry were there, most of them have been taken care of. Maybe one or two because we are still not a mature market. And I think they'll have to give the established players some more space so that a lot of capex which is underway can be spent to flourish.
Okay.
So I think
Well,
that's
that's
it.
a thumbs up to the regulators as they're leading. I think moving to you, Ashish, regulation brings with it this twin of taxation, right? And I think what we've seen there so far is, again, a push towards favorable taxation, relatively speaking, in the clean fuel spectrum, at least, to EVs over maybe gas. So you work very hard in the policy advocacy circles. What is your position on that?
I would like government to reduce taxes.
Of course.
See, I think first government understands that we need a bouquet of all technologies if we really have to make an impact in terms of our oil import reduction. We need electric, we need hybrid, we need biofuels, and we need CNG. If you look at any segment other than CNG, there are number of incentives available. I mean, any other alternatives. For an EV, there is a GST benefit, there is an charging power benefit, there is a subsidy, there is a road tax benefit, there is a state benefit, and if you add everything, I mean now income tax benefit, and if you add everything, that's a mind-boggling number. If we think CNG is also a important mainstream fuel for the future, I'm not asking much, but let's say even 5 or 10% of what you're giving to EV, you know, and combined together, you know, the EV, of course, we are doing as in policymakers are great in that area, a 5 or 10% of an EV, and we can of course substantiate why do we need these numbers.
Right.
5 or 10% of what we are providing for an EV for next 3 to 5 years can bring huge revolution in the area of CNG, and of course the combination of both can bring a huge benefit for the country.
Okay.
So that's
Great. I think that really helps in terms of what is the specific ask to bring these two sort of fuel options on parity. You know, I'd really like to end this panel with a lightning round, where if there's one thing you need this, the gas industry to fix, no matter, you know, what needs to be fixed in the gas industry, what is that one thing, Ashwini?
Bring gas in GST.
Gas and GST. Okay. Ashish.
I think before the gas industry, I think one thing which the auto industry needs to fix is the gas industry has made their commitments. Significant amount of investments are expected in next 7 to 8 years. The number is something like 70,000 crores are being committed. Now, the onus is on the auto industry. Yes, I would agree that 3 years, 4 years back, the gas industry was not so aggressive. We were not moving as fast as we wanted to move. But now, I mean, I've seen all my friends in the gas industry, and all compliments to the gas industry, the way that they have been aggressively working in the last 1 or 2 years. The onus is on to us. And when I say onus is on to us, definitely in a long term, you would need CNG as a big alternative. You do not have any other options. So what you can start is at least 50% of your CNG options. 50% of your of your vehicles should have a CNG option available. Okay. That is what I think the auto sector now needs to focus on.
Great.
At the same time, I also have a request for the gas industry. Please understand, this is a golden opportunity for us. Government is favorable, regulator is favorable, the gas prices are favorable, and the auto sector, players like us, are also willing to invest heavily in this area. If we cannot do it now,
Right.
we can never ever do it. Just in terms of course, we know the numbers, the next 8 to 10 years, we have to add another 10,000 to 12,000 CNG stations, but I'm just saying break it into parts. In the last 20 years, we have added 2,000 stations in the country. But in the next 3 years, we need to add another 2,000 stations. It looks bigger number when you compare in the past, but it's a very small number. This year, I understand in a whole country, we'll be adding close to 450 to 500 stations. What we need to do is add 650 stations each for the next 3 years. Simple. And if you do that, you will see all OEMs, when I'm saying that OEMs should bring in 50% of the vehicles should be CNG options, if not 50, I can commit that it will be 30-40% of all OEMs. We are seeing Hyundai making a move. Of course, Maruti have committed. Toyota making a move. Honda making a move. Tatas and Mahindras have the technology. So it's just about of time. These 3 years are extremely crucial. 2,000 stations in next 3 years.
Great. So I think we have some very distinct asks here from the industry and from the automotive sector. How are you going to achieve it really, Amit? There are some asks which go to you in terms of, you know, building those stations as the gas industry. But what's that one thing for you?
To put it very simply for me, I would say stop the confusion. I think there's a lot of conflict across the value chain So we hear a statement on one day and then another statement on the next day. And across the value chain, when you go out in the market, while we understand the ministry is saying 15%, but to get a piece of land in your name becomes a Herculean task. To get the permissions to lay the pipeline becomes even more difficult. So while the whole country says, okay, we have to move to a gas-based economy to the extent of 24, 26% globally, although we have just fixed a target of 15 for us, I think everyone needs to understand if we have to achieve that, if it makes sense for the country, then we need to work ourselves in that direction. So that simple thing, IGL is fully geared and he says 650, I mean, we'll maybe give 100 from our side every year, so that's not a problem. And the way we are coming up in the new areas in 11th round coming up soon, like Mr. Saraf said in the morning, I think the potential is huge.
Yeah.
And we are ready to experiment in every which way possible. So that is an assurance I can give from the gas industry side to the automotive, to the regulators, everyone. But I think stop the confusion. Let's align our thoughts from the central government to the last person out who signs the file for some small permission, which takes years at times.
Right.
And you know something, again, like I said, 1,000 connections per day. This year alone, we are going to add 2,200 kilometers of MDP in practically NCR. But how do we do it? We know it. So I think that's the support I'm looking for from the government, from the regulator, and from every small and big authority in the country. So, and we'll give you what you want. So,
And I
thank you.
think that's a very, again, clear message to stop the confusion, get the GST in place, get the number of stations in place, and have the 50% vehicles to have the CNG option. So I think there was a lot of clarity on this panel, and that always makes it easier. So I'd like to give a big applause, ladies and gentlemen, to our three aces here. It was Ashwini, Amit, and Ashish. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Gauri, for the wonderful panel. Before we go for the lunch break, we would like to present the mementos to our guests.
Should we have a group photo? Yeah, I'll just give it. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Nice to have you on the panel. Oh yeah, of course. Sorry. The photo op is important. Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you, Amit. Okay. Okay. No. It's for you. No. This is for you. No. Please. Let me do this. Thank you. Nice to meet you here. Thank you. He volunteered to do the honors. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And let's get a photograph, I think. Come, let's get a photograph. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Now we will break for lunch and come here back at around 2 o'clock.
Thank you.